In this tutorial, we are going to be learning about skin retouching using the amazing frequency separation technique. So even if you're a beginner out there, I'm just going to be trying to make it as short as possible, unlike my usual long tutorials. So this is going to be like part 2 of the previous tutorial that I uploaded about the color grading process for this particular image. So for those interested in learning about how I did the color grading for the skin tones for this particular image and the background change in color, I'm going to link for you the video right above here. So let me first of all request you guys to hit the like button on this particular video, because you are going to be learning so much from this particular tutorial. And if at all you're a beginner or you have been using frequency separation and getting everything wrong every single time you try to do your skin retouching on your images, this is going to be helping you. So make sure that you first of all hit the like button on this particular video so that YouTube can push it to more people out there to learn from the very same video and improve on their frequency separation technique in Photoshop. So let me hope you're done hitting the like button. So basically, what is frequency separation? Frequency separation is a skin retouching technique in which we divide the image into two. So when you divide this image into two, the first layer is going to be containing the colors and the skin tones, and the second layer is going to be containing the skin textures or the details in the image. So when we retouch those layers independent of one another, for example, when you're working on textures, we'll be removing maybe the blemishes, and when you're working with the skin tones, we try to blend or even out the skin tones. So when you combine both layers, we're going to be having a very nice and retouched image at the end of the process for the skin retouching. So I'm just going to create those two layers by hitting Ctrl or Command J once and Command J twice, or Ctrl J once and Ctrl J twice. So usually the bottom layer we're just going to name it low frequency, and the upper layer we're going to name it high frequency. So if at all you don't want to go through all this trouble of creating these layers, I'm going to link for you guys my digital store so that you can check out and purchase these actions that are going to help you fasten or speed up your skin retouching process in Photoshop. So back to this, usually in the low frequency layer, that's where we have the colors and the skin tones, and the high frequency layer, that's where we have our textures or the details in the image. So first of all, turn off the high frequency layer and select the low frequency layer. So like I've just said, in this layer we only want to remain with the details in the image. So rather, we only want to remain with the colors or skin tones in the low frequency layer. So you're just going to come to filter, blur, and come to Gaussian blur. So we just want to move this radius up to a point when the details in the image are starting to get lost. So you have to zoom in and look for the area that seems to have more details or texture than the rest of the image, and left click and move this radius up to a point when these details are just starting to get lost. So I think at around 7, that is when the details are just starting to get lost from the overall image. So it is the details we lose out right here that are going to be gotten back in the final image after doing the frequency separation or skin retouching. So I'm just going to hit OK, and you can see the image is looking a little bit blurry, but don't mind about that. Come and select the high frequency layer and now activate it. And after you have activated it, remember in the high frequency layer we only want to remain with the details or the skin texture. So in order to do that, you have to first of all note that this is a 16-bit image. So in the next step, I'll show you guys the different kind of frequency separation steps that you can undergo or go through with either 8-bit or 16-bit images. So you may not be able to get the best results if at all you apply 8-bit frequency separation actions or steps on a 16-bit image and otherwise. So make sure your high frequency layer is selected, and now come to image and you come to apply image. So on this step you have to note that this is the 16-bit image. So for 16-bit images you have to come and select the layer from which we are subtracting our details, which is the low frequency layer. And now the blending mode for 16-bit images has to be add, and make sure opacity is at 100 and preserve transparency and the mask are not checked. Make sure the scale is 2 and the offset at 0, and make sure you check the invert option. And when you do this, make sure the preview is on, and you can see that the textures or details are on this gray kind of layer and it is lacking colors. But if at all you have an 8-bit image, come and select the low frequency layer and make sure invert is not checked, and make sure the blending mode is subtract, opacity at 100, preserve transparency and mask are not checked, the scale is 2, and make sure the offset is 128, and make sure the preview is on, and this is going to get you the same results like we had for the 16 bits. But since this is a 16-bit image, I'm simply going to change this to add, and scale is to offset 0, and make sure I turn on invert and hit OK. So you can see that the details are on this gray kind of layer when I hit Command or Control plus on the keyboard to zoom in and out. So come to the blend mode and change it from normal and look for linear light, and you'll get back the image the way it was meant to be, or the image we had initially before. So select both layers and hit Control Command G on the keyboard, and you can name this frequency. I'm just going to turn off caps. Frequency separation. So this is the frequency separation, and when you turn this on and off, you can see there is no difference between the original background image and our frequency separation layers in this group. So meaning we have successfully divided the frequencies in this image into the colors and the textures. So I'm just going to open the frequency separation group, and by skin retouching we'll be blending or evening out the skin tones in a particular image. And in order to do that, we are going to first of all use this amazing technique that is going to show us every area that has uneven skin tones. And in order to do that, you can as well create a black and white layer, but I noticed that most of you don't know how to use that as a check layer. So we're just going to turn off the textures, and when we do that and we hit Command plus, you can see the areas that have uneven skin tone transitions. I hope you can see this bumpiness within the skin tone transitions. And after doing that, we're just going to come under the brushes, simply right click and get the mixer brush tool. So when you get the mixer brush tool, we have to make sure that this has the best settings. So make sure that it is a clean brush, and make sure the second option is checked or highlighted, because we want the brush to be cleaned after each and every stroke when you're trying to blend or harmonize the transitions within the skin tones. The weight is going to be 9%, load 75, mix 90, and the flow 100. Make sure sample all layers is not checked, because you only want to work with the low frequency layer. And after you have done that, come and select the low frequency layer that is containing the colors or skin tones in this particular image. And you can always turn off the caps lock key, because your tool is going to be like this cross icon. So make sure you turn off caps lock key to get the brush looking like this kind of circle. And now you can use the brackets to either increase or decrease on the size of the mixer brush tool. And how I'm mixing, I'm going to mix the areas that are looking the same or similar and blend them together. So let me just do that. Left click and hold down and start painting. And as I'm doing this, you're going to notice that this is going to be like more of an oil painting, but that shouldn't be your biggest worry, because this layer is meant to only contain the colors or the skin tones in this image. So just come and blend just like that. So where these skin tones are trying to transition, just come and paint just like that to have a nicer transition within those colors or different colors in the skin tone. So reduce on the size depending on the area that you are trying to blend. And as you're doing all this, make sure you keep away from the hair and maybe the eyebrows and the eyes. So make sure you only blend only and only the skin area, just like that. Just do this and blend, and you can see that this is really working in real time, because when you turn on the skin texture layer by hitting the eye icon, you can see the before and after, and you can see that we have just evened out the skin tones using the mixer brush tool. and it is really looking nice and beautiful. So we just want to blend the rest of the skin. So turn off the high frequency layer and make sure that you're selected onto the low frequency layer, and you can now zoom in depending on how small the area is, and get the smaller brush and just come and start painting just like that, and just paint like that, and just harmonize the skin tone transitions just nice and beautifully, and you'll be seeing everything in real time as you're painting or moving the mixer brush tool, and you have to move it in the direction an area is really shaped. So just make sure that you move it in that direction, and you can see that everything is really affecting the image in real time. So just come and do that and do everything. Let's just do this and let's see the progress. So you have to always keep on checking on the progress for your images, before, after, before, after. So you're just going to zoom in and work on this nose area. So turn off the textures and increase on the brush, and just come and blend these shadows alone in the nose area just like that, and harmonize them, and come this side and also harmonize the shadows on this other side of the nose. And you can come and work on this highlight on the nose area just like that. Nice and easy, but it is really an effective technique. So I know some people out there tend to use the lasso tool method, but that is not going to be getting you like the cleanest results. And you have seen those images that really have those bumps within the skin tone transitions. It is because people don't know how to use the lasso tool. So when you tend to incorporate the lasso tool method or technique of skin retouching and the mixer brush tool technique, you're going to be getting the best out of your overall skin retouching process using frequency separation. So let's just blend this area. Remember, we are doing skin retouching on the overall image. Make sure you blend every single area on the skin. Just continue playing around with the sizes of the mixer brush tool. And I forgot to tell you, the hardness is at 0, of course. It is a soft mixer brush tool for those that always ask for the settings. So just come and make sure that every tiny area in this skin of the model is really blended in quite well. So zoom out and look at the image, and when you look when you look at it from afar, you can see the areas that still have those kind of bumpiness, and you can come and work on them. So let's just work on the neck area, because most people tend to forget these tiny vital areas every single time they're working on the images. So blend just like that. You can see I'm not dragging my brush from one area to another. I'm just trying to blend by moving the brush from one area to another, depending on the skin color or skin tone I'm trying to work on in the image. So just come and do that. Reduce on the size and work on the hand just like that. And you can see this is really working on the image in real time. So just come and work it out just like that. So turn back the textures and you see, or look at the image so far, and you see what we have done to the image. So this is the before and after, before, after. So with the texture layer still on, we can now come and try to perfect the areas, because right now we can see every detail quite well. So, and after doing that, see the before and after. We haven't blended here well, so I think this looks really fine. So after doing that, we just want to incorporate the other known technique, that is using the lasso tool. So with the low frequency layer selected, come and get the lasso tool, feather in 22 pixels, and now you can zoom in and make a selection on the skin area. So come and make a selection just like that, the way an area is shaped, like the forehead. You can see I'm following that shape. Come to filter and come to blur and come to Gaussian blur. So remember, this is the radius we had initially when we are creating a frequency separation group or dividing the frequencies of this image. So when you come and we simply move this up gradually as you're looking at the textures, you have to stop up to that point when we have the best details in the skin. So at around 21, the details in the skin area are really looking nice and natural. But let me share a trick with you guys. So the radius we had when we are creating the frequency separation group, when you multiply that radius, so depending on your images, you may be having different details in the images and you may have used a different radius. So when you multiply that radius by 3 and you just type it in, so remember 7 by 3 is 21. So I'm just going to delete this and type in 21 and you can see that we have the same results right there. So just hit OK and apply it onto the rest of the image. So this is more of a fine-tuning process. So right click and come to Gaussian blur and make a selection. You can see I'm following the way an area is shaped. So right click and come to Gaussian blur just like that. It is more like I am doing makeup. I'm just following the way the face is shaped in this particular tutorial. So I'm just going to come to the chin area and just draw like that and come to right click and come to Gaussian blur. When you feel it is too much, you can right click on the selection. Let me show you guys. When it comes to the nose area, right click and apply it, and when you feel it is too much, you can simply either right click on the selection and come to fade Gaussian blur and reduce on the opacity depending on what you're trying to go in for. So basically that is how to use this technique, but you shouldn't apply it on the most prominent highlights, for example the nose highlight, because it's going to make the nose flat at the end of your retouching process. So make sure to go easy and soft on the nose areas. So right click and come to Gaussian blur just like that. So when you feel like it is enough and you're really happy with it, you can now come and check the before and after to see the progress. So next thing is going to be removing those blemishes from the image. So come and get to the layer that contains the blemishes. And for this case, I'm just going to be using the clone stamp tool. And for the settings for my clone stamp tool, I'm basically going to leave the hardness at around 40. Flow at 100 and opacity 100. Make sure sample is on the current layer because you don't want sample color from the low frequency layer. You only want to deal with this high frequency layer. So zoom in, and now you can now use this by holding down alternate on the keyboard or option and left click or close the blemish and simply click over the blemish to eliminate it or get rid of it from the image, and this is going to get you the best results from your skin retouching process. So just come and do this. So you have to take your time while removing the blemishes, but I'm just trying to rush through because this is a tutorial. So I'm basically copying and stamping over the blemish. So I'm basically copying and stamping over the blemish. So copying and stamping clean area on the blemish to eliminate it from the model skin. So I'm just going to do this. So like I said, you always have to take your time while cleaning up or removing blemishes from your images. So I'm just getting this done because I don't want this to be an hour-long tutorial. I just don't want us to exceed around 40 minutes for this. And after doing this, we are just going to save the image the best way so that it doesn't change in color after we have been able to post it or put it on a different device. So I think we are almost done with the blemish removal. I think this looks really nice and beautiful. Command minus to zoom out. So let's say before and after. This is the before, after, and the image really looks nice and clean. So the next thing is going to be adding some little bit of coloring or color grading to this image, just a tiny bit. So I'm just going to create a stamp visible by hitting Shift Alternate Command E on the keyboard to create a stamp for what we have done. and come to filter and come to the camera raw filter. We just want to get rid of these too many whites in the image. So just going to come here and reduce on the highlights to around 15. Let's go with around 13 and reduce the whites just a little bit to around, let's go with 13 too, and add a little bit of contrast to this image to around 6, and this really changes the image before after. And now hit OK. So we are now going to be exporting the image in the best way possible, and by this you have to be having the latest version of Photoshop to be having this. And if at all you're lucky and you have this in your Photoshop, let's use this technique. So come to File, Export, and come to Export As. And after doing that, the next thing is going to be simply coming and you select the format. I prefer JPEG because this is supported by most social media or devices. So select JPEG. Resampling, if at all you want your image to be nice and crisp, sharp, make sure resample is on by cubic sharper, and also check these two options because you don't want your image to change in color after you have been able to post it on social media or put it on a different device. So after doing that, come and hit export, and you can rename this to whatever you really want. So I'm just going to name this maybe frequency just separation, and hit save, and the image is going to be saved. So this is all for today's tutorial, and if at all you have learned something from this, don't forget to like this video and don't forget to subscribe this channel. If at all you have been watching from this channel for the very first time, Ronnix from Ronnix Photography, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in yet more tutorials. And don't forget to keep retouching and keep perfecting.